Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to explore one of the absolute most profound philosophies of existence ever taught, dependent origination. To really wrap our heads around this, I want you to imagine reality not as some solid, unchanging block of stone, but more like a vast, incredibly intricate papercraft. Every single fold, every cut, and every overlapping layer completely relies on the one right next to it just to hold its shape. So let's dive into this together and gently unfold these deep layers of existence, using the source text's wisdom to see exactly how every single thing in our lives is interconnected.
Our source material actually begins with this really fascinating historical exchange. The Buddha's attendant, Ananda, once kind of casually remarked that the rules of causality seemed, well, pretty simple and easy to grasp. But the Buddha gently yet firmly corrected him. His response was just so profound. He said, "Dependent origination is profound, as deep as the ocean." Basically, he was warning Ananda not to mistake those little surface waves for the unfathomable depths below. It's this incredibly complex web of conditions that goes way, way beyond simple cause and effect.
And you know, that brings us to a very modern question. Do you truly understand what it means to just let it go or go with the flow? In our super fast-paced world, when things don't work out the way we planned, we so often just throw our hands up and say, oh well, whatever happens, happens. But we really have to ask ourselves, are we genuinely accepting reality in that moment? Or are we just giving up out of sheer frustration and deciding to call it peace?
That brings us to Section 1, the wisdom of true acceptance.
The source text makes a really sharp distinction here between a superficial, passive attitude of whatever and the profound, active choice of true acceptance. See, saying whatever usually means you're just checking out, and there's almost always some lingering bitterness or regret attached to it. True acceptance, on the other hand, that involves deeply evaluating all the multi-layered conditions that actually led to a moment. It's a highly active choice to observe the intricate paper folds of reality, recognize exactly why they had to fold that way, and then make a calm, unregretful decision to just accept them.
And to put into perspective just how difficult this level of acceptance truly is, the text notes that this is a wisdom beyond literally even the heavenly beings. Even deities like Brahma, who are said to reside in these exalted states, still struggle with their own attachments and their own sense of self. Even they fail to fully grasp this massive web of causality. So look, if you ever find it hard to truly let go of a grievance or a failed plan, please don't be too hard on yourself. It is an incredibly deep and difficult practice.
Moving right along to Section 2, inevitability and universality. These are the two absolute core laws that dictate the mechanics of our universe. Inevitability basically means that whatever conditions come together to form a shape, whether that's a person, a passing emotion, or a life situation, it must eventually unfold and cease to be. And universality means there are zero exceptions, none. Just like a beautiful paper cutout is eventually going to fade or tear over time, no one and absolutely nothing is immune to these mechanics.
So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that it's really all just a matter of time and conditions. The source uses this brilliant grounding metaphor to explain it. Think about your absolute favorite daily coffee cup. It might break in 10 years from a clumsy drop in the kitchen. Now, compare that to some ancient ceramic artifact that's been carefully preserved in a museum for 1,000 years. The inevitability of breaking remains exactly the same for both of them. The only difference is the timeline of their specific conditions. One is subjected to daily kitchen hazards, right? While the other is protected by climate control and thick glass. But they are both bound by the exact same universal law.
Let's look deeper into how this works in Section 3, the facts and logic of dependent origination.
Let's map out the core logic. The foundational principle here is often translated as, when this is, that is. It's essentially a three-step sequence. First up, you have the cause, which you can think of like a seed. Second, you have the condition, which is the environment, the soil, the water, the sunlight. And finally, you get the effect, which is the resulting sprout. You literally cannot have the sprout without the exact right combination of the seed and the environment. This is an unbreakable law of nature.
Let's bring this down to earth with a super practical example from the text. Imagine overworking late into the night for weeks on end, which, surprise, surprise, eventually leads to you getting sick. The illness itself is the fact. It's the tangible, uncomfortable reality you're currently experiencing. But the underlying causality, the lack of sleep, the mounting stress, the compromised immune system, that's the universal logic at play. By recognizing the logic, we stop viewing the illness as just random bad luck, and we start seeing it as a totally predictable fold in the papercraft of our own choices.
Now we get to some of the deepest concepts in Section 4,
the mystery of existence and arising.
The text defines existence, or bhava as it's called in the ancient Pali language. Now, we usually think of existence as this static binary, right? Like you either have something or you don't. You are or you aren't. But this philosophy defines existence entirely differently. It's not a permanent or cell-phone state at all. It's a temporary phenomenon brought together by ever-changing conditions. You aren't static, you are constantly unfolding, moment by single moment.
And closely tied to existence is this concept of arising. Arising is simply the visible presentation of those conditions coming together. Think of it exactly like opening a really intricate pop-up book. The paper castle that springs up from the page only arises because the book is open to a very specific angle, pulling very specific hidden tabs. It's just a momentary appearance based entirely on the roots underneath the paper.
Let's apply these really deep definitions to something we've all experienced: human relationships. Consider two close friends drifting apart over time. If we look at it through the lens of our pop-up book, the friendship ending isn't some sudden tragic failure. Rather, it's just the shifting of existence and arising. As the internal and external conditions of both friends change, maybe it's new jobs, moving to new cities, or just shifting personal values, the conditions that held that pop-up structure together simply change. The friendship doesn't vanish into thin air, it just transforms as the underlying conditions transform.
Finally, let's tie this all together in Section 5, seeing through the layers of causality.
The real secret here is learning how to trace a problem backwards. You always start with the present emotion. Maybe it's anger or sadness. That is the fruit. Then you step back to find the direct cause, which we'll call root A. But you don't stop there. True wisdom lies in investigating even further to find the hidden condition, root B, and maybe even going as far back as root C and D. By deeply investigating these multi-layered causes, you finally stop blindly reacting to the surface effect.
Ultimately, it comes down to a choice. We can spend our entire lives obsessing over the fruit, just caught in this painful, exhausting habit of fixating on negative outcomes, feeling victimized, and totally drowning in our emotional reactions. Or we can practice observing the roots. When we truly understand the complex, fragile web of conditions that created someone's bad behavior or a difficult life event, an amazing thing happens. Our anger naturally dissolves right into peace and compassion. We finally see the delicate paper craft for exactly what it is.
So I want to leave you with this final thought to reflect on. The very next time you face a bitter result in your life, what will you do? Will you complain about the taste of the fruit? Or will you take a breath, step back, and calmly trace the roots? Understanding dependent origination isn't just some dry intellectual exercise. It is a literal tool for unbinding our daily suffering. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep exploring those layers, and I'll see you next time.